Good evening, one and all. I feel extremely honored to welcome you all for the webinar Teachers as Agents of Change, conducted by Badruka College of Commerce and Arts. I would like to welcome our principal, Dr. B. Mohan Kumar, and other higher officials from the Usmania University, as well as the participants from all over the country and abroad. Without further delay, I would now like to invite our principal, Dr. B. Mohan Kumar, to give the welcome address.
Good evening to all the dignitaries and all my colleagues. I welcome you all for this webinar on teachers as change agents. At the outset, let me thank Mr. Shubha Vilas for accepting our invitation and obliging us by his presence. Needless to say that today his presence would lit up the torch of enlightenment for us. Before we proceed with the webinar, let me brief you about Badruka College of Commerce and Art. Badruka College of Commerce and Arts was established under the aegis of Seth Ghasiram Gopikishan Badruka Educational Society in the year 1950. The main motto has been to impart quality education with adequate practical exposure in shaping its students into responsible citizens. Badruka College has become a byword for academic and extracurricular achievements. It's been long recognized as a premier institution for higher education in the southern part of India. As a center for academic excellence and achievement, it has emerged as one of the finest institutions for commerce and management education in Hyderabad as well as in South India. The striving has been always to imbibe a unique teaching learning methodology with a blend of industry and academia engagement. With the eminent team of faculty members, we not only aim at academics, but also concentrate on overall holistic development of the society, as well as our students. Badruka College has a legacy of 70 years of quality education, and it has been synonymous with commerce education. As a part of our motivation lecture series, we are organizing this webinar for the teaching fraternity who act as a change agents in this present scenario. The pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, imposed a paradigm shift from traditional teaching to remote teaching, that is online teaching and education, and teachers have adapted to the new technologies, new pedagogical tools, as well as new methodologies of teaching with a very positive perspective and attitude. The teachers act as a catalyst for change. So, my dear knowledge partners, without wasting much of your time, I will hand over the session to our eminent speaker of the day, Shubhilas. And I am sure that each one of you will have many takeaways from today's session. Thank you, one and all. Over to Archana.
Thank you, sir, for addressing us. Now, I would like to call Mrs. B. Rashmi, the convener of the webinar, to kindly introduce the speaker to all of us.
Good evening to one and all. It's my proud privilege to introduce to you all our today's speaker, Shri Shubha Vilas. With more than a decade of motivational speaking and corporate training experience with over 100 clients worldwide, Shubha Vilas is an inspirational orator and speaker, storyteller, and a lifestyle coach. Shubha Vilas was born in 1981 in the southern part of the Indian peninsula. He holds a degree in electronic engineering. His multifaceted interests led him to pursue the specialized field of patent law post-engineering. As a brief stint in the corporate world, he chose to leave mainstream society to live a life of contemplation, putting his energy into deep studies and interpretation of Vedic scriptures. He went to become a monk and a spiritual seeker. Accessible and friendly, Shubha Vilas has a unique ability to see things from a practical perspective applied with scriptural vision, making scriptures useful in everyone's life and creating life lessons that lead to self-development roadmaps. Because he has lived the life of a monk, he applies the consciousness of a monk in everything he does. His high spiritual energy, combined with an affable personality, is what makes him such a sought after lifestyle coach and an inspiring seeker. He recently spoke at Microsoft, Amazon, and Samsung at their headquarters in Seattle, USA, and also at Google Silicon Valley, USA. He is a regular speaker at the National Human Resource Development Government of India, where his sessions are attended by top-notch HR heads. He is also a regular speaker at the Rotary Club. He is also a TEDx speaker and has spoken at the top B schools in India, such as IIM Ranchi, IIM Lucknow, and many more. Apart from the corporate sector, his target audience is the youth. He travels across the globe, connecting with them across educational institutions, counseling and guiding students in the area of leadership, overcoming failures, managing stress, amongst other relevant concerns. He recently was invited to speak at the prestigious Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, Boston. His effortless speaking attracts hearts and minds of people across the world, and that's what makes him a popular invitee in countries such as Australia, UK, USA, South Africa, Mauritius, Hong Kong, and Far East. As an author, writing books is an extension of his deep sense of responsibility towards society and the benefits it can derive from understanding ancient literature in their true essence. Roar with courage, conquer change, and adopt patience from his book series Ramayana, The Game of Life are national bestsellers. His book titled Open-Eyed Meditations is also a national bestseller. At the Jaipur Literature Festival 2017, Shubha Vilas presented his unique perspectives as a writer and publisher to nearly 1.2 million book lovers. Before I hand over the session to the speaker, I humbly request participants to put relevant questions to the chat box. Those will definitely be answered. Sir, we are honored to have you here with us today. Now I hand over session to you. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rashmiji, for introducing me. Can I have, yeah, thank you. Before I begin speaking, I would like to first of all express my gratitude to Dr. Mohan Kumar ji for having me here on this session, and to the entire management of Badruka College, and I especially would like to thank teacher Archana ji for coordinating the whole effort. I am really grateful and honored to be amidst all of you all here. I understand that all of you all are teachers, and I consider myself, of all the roles that I do in life, the most prominent role that I consider myself to be playing is that of a teacher. And It's an honor and pleasure to be amidst those who consider teaching to be foremost in life. Today, we're going to be speaking about the subject matter of teachers as agents of change. Human life, all of us, the way we live our lives, is basically for four things. These are called the four aims of human life. The first aim is to live. Everyone wants to live, no one wants to die. But it's not just about living, it's not enough to just live. Along with living, we also would like to. I'm sorry, my laptop is moving on its own. It'll be great if all of y'all, or at least many of y'all, can put on your videos just so that I see. At this point in time, I can only see two faces here. Sometimes it becomes, with an online platform, it becomes very difficult to speak when you don't see anyone, and you just see empty screens. So it would be wonderful if all of y'all, and how many of y'all could put on your videos. It would really help me. Um, Thank you. Thank you. So I was saying that there are four aims to life. The first aim is to live. No one wants to die. Everyone wants to live for a long period of time. But the question is, it's not just about living, but while living, you also want to learn. That is the second L, which is the aim of life. And while learning, there's a third thing. You want to experience love and you want to give love. This is the third L of life. And there's a fourth L, which is leave a legacy. Everyone wants to leave a legacy. That means much after you're gone, how do you want people to remember you? Do you want people to say, good, this guy died, he's gone from this world? Or do you want people to really remember you much after you're gone? That's what leaving a legacy is. Teachers leave permanent legacy in the hearts of people. A teacher is judged not by their own success, but by the success of their students. Teaching is almost like performing a surgery. If you have seen surgeons perform surgery on the operation theatre, what happens inside the operation theatre, nobody knows. Only the surgeon knows, and what he's doing is something that just is very confidential. What a teacher does in that closed setup in a teaching in a classroom is something only the teacher knows, and therefore all of us, we are partners. We're fully responsible and fully accountable only to ourselves and to God. And therefore, a lot of times, teaching as a profession, unfortunately nowadays, a lot of people take up teaching as a last option. I once went to a college which was a B.Ed college, only teachers, or rather future teachers. And before giving the seminar over there, I just asked all of them, just out of curiosity, I asked them, why do you want to be a teacher? And the answers I got shocked me. Some of them said, we didn't get anything else, therefore we became, we chose B.Ed. Somebody else said that, I was a lab assistant, I got opportunity to study B.Ed, I became a teacher. So nobody told me in that forum, I chose B.Ed, I chose this subject because I want to be a teacher. Not even one person said that. And that really shows the pathetic situation of the situation in which the teaching community is. I'm going to tell you about two types of teachers. So just before I go ahead, I want to tell you all that while I'm going to share with you so much in the next 45 minutes or so, I'm going to be telling you all a lot of stories. I like to call myself a storyteller. So in between the session, you'll find a lot of stories coming in. And these stories, of course, will be fun to hear. But along with that, each story will have a message. So please remember the story and also remember why I told you all the story, which is more important. So there are two types of teachers. There was once a master teacher. There was a student who was trying to test these two types of teachers. And what the student was doing was, he knew exactly what the master teacher does. Comes into the classroom, greets all the students and begins to deliver a session. As soon as he begins with a solid punchline that immediately grabs attention, and the students begin to look towards the teacher, and then the teacher begins teaching. But this student, he decided to test the master teacher. You know what he did? He kept looking outside. He just turned away from facing the teacher, kept looking outside. The master teacher spoke the punchline. He still didn't turn. He kept looking outside. The master teacher usually, after the punchline, gets into some other discussion which is interesting. This time he didn't do it. That means he broke his regular protocol. Why? Because he saw one student is inattentive. He broke the entire protocol just to get that guy's attention. And then finally, within 2 minutes, the master teacher walks up straight to that boy who was looking outside, and he asks him what happened. That means he had only patience to wait for 2 minutes before walking up to that person and asking what happened. That means the master teacher was so interested in every student there, focusing on him, focusing on like having 100% attention, that he just couldn't continue speaking. And that's what the whole idea of teaching is. The regular teacher doesn't care if half the class is inattentive, doesn't care if half the class is not focused. And the regular teacher focuses on the other half, who is paying attention vaguely. It's not my problem if you don't want to learn. It's your problem. The question is the teacher responsible for the learning of the student, or is the teacher only responsible to cover the material? Unfortunately, teaching has been redefined as what teacher says rather than what student learns. The divorce between teaching and learning is tragic. That is the cause of all problems in education today. There is a divorce between teaching and learning. The teacher is teaching something, students are learning something else, basically. Once a king asked his minister, was all his ministers sitting in the audience, he asked them, which profession is instrumental in making our kingdom what it is today? One minister got up and he said, engineers. They build the infrastructure without which no forts, no dams, no irrigation will be available. The king said, get the best engineer here. Then another minister got up and he said, according to me, doctors. Because if they were not there, you wouldn't be born. You would have died of some ailment. And there would be no engineers alive. The king said, get the best doctor. Another minister said, actually, it's soldiers. If soldiers are not guarding the borders, your kingdom would have become somebody else's kingdom long back. You would have been a slave, not a king. The king said, get the best soldier. Another minister said, it's actually the businessmen. Everything functions only because of money. And therefore, the businessmen are the ones who are, the best. So like this, every minister spoke about different professions. And the best of all those professions were there in the king's court. The best engineer, the best doctor, the best, soldier, like that. There were a whole series of the best of people standing there. The king was confused. Now, who is the best among them? He turned to the prime minister and he asked, what should I do? Whom should I reward? The prime minister said, I knew you would get confused. And then you will come back to me. The prime minister said, give me some time. He left. He left the courtroom. And a little while later, the prime minister walked in with an old lady. As soon as the old lady entered the courtroom, everyone got up. The king also got up. And the king asked, who is this old lady in the presence of whom everyone is standing? The best of engineers, the best of doctors, the best of soldiers. The prime minister said, she's the teacher of all of them. And that's when the king understood that no matter how many professionals we have, if they don't have a good teacher, they don't have a teacher who has actually given them, what requires them to be the best. Naturally, there's not much they can actually do. And therefore, we find that teachers have so much of substance that they can offer society if they do their job well. Um, Rashmiji, is it because you're calling me because are you the one who's calling me? Is there some issue? I think they have made me the host, is it? Okay. I'm making somebody else the co-host. Okay. So the problem with making me the host is that I have to keep adding people. Whoever joins in new, I'll only have to add them basically. I'll do that, no problem. No issues, don't worry. What was I saying? Okay. So the idea of teachers being agents of change is a very powerful idea because teaching and the mood behind teaching is so very important for learning to happen. So I'm sharing with you a slide right in front of you. If you can see this, the slide is everything that a teacher needs to know about the teaching process. There is a speaker, there's a subject, and there's a student. If you can see the three boxes in front of you, there's a speaker who is a communicator. There's a student who is a part of a class. So what really happens is usually a teacher uses words and uses lectures, rather uses a teaching style to share content. And what the student does, listens and writes. That's what happens in a classroom, right? This is exactly what happens in the classroom. And both are focusing on the content. The teacher is focusing on covering the content, and the student is focusing on, listening to the content. So the focus here is on the content. Ideally, the focus should not be on the content, but the focus should be on the class, on the student. So the teacher is actually a communicator who wants to communicate and cause learning to happen to the students. The idea of a teacher is not to complete the portion. The idea of a teacher is not to complete teach the content, but the idea of the teacher, if you look below the arrow below, the communicator causes learning. So that means the connection is not to the content, the connection is to the student directly. A lot of times, teachers tend to forget that their main connection is not to the subject, but it is to the student. A lot of problems happen in the teaching process simply because the teacher focuses on content and not on the student. The teacher has to believe that he or she is responsible for the student's learning. So when you are a teacher, you teach as if you are 100% responsible. And when you are a student, you learn like you are 100% responsible. So both ways, the process of teaching and learning becomes very intense. There are different types of teachers. I'm going to talk to you about teacher in the mode of ignorance, the teacher in the mode of passion, and teacher in the mode of goodness. And this is very interesting. You find which style you fall in. All of you are teachers here in this forum. You will see which style you fall in. The teacher in the mode of ignorance is angry and violent, forces students to comply with his or her wishes. Negative, iron-fisted approach. This is most important. Divides students into friends and enemies. Some students are his friends and some students are his enemies. I am sure you recognize what I'm saying, what I'm talking about, right? There are some teachers who divide students into friends and enemies. What is the result? The result is that the teacher injures the values of the student. The teacher in the mode of passion is different from the teacher in the mode of ignorance. Teacher in the mode of passion takes personal offense if the students don't obey. Works hard but moody. Envious of teachers who obtain better results and cannot distinguish which is better for students and engages in actions of short-term pleasures. And here is a teacher in the mode of goodness. The teacher in the mode of goodness is regulated, self-controlled, tolerant. Dutifully teaches without being attached to success and failure. Instructs students in clear terms in assertive ways. And his strictures at times is difficult, but the results are sweet. So that means they do act strict sometimes, but the result they produce is always great. I'm going to share with you all some tips for you as teachers. And please, take these tips seriously, because these are tips that are going to be life transformational. Just 1 second. I've been asked to pin my video. I'm just figuring out how to pin my video. Okay. Yeah. I hope this works. I'm going to share with you all some thoughts on how teachers need to really focus. If you stop growing today, you stop teaching tomorrow. I am a teacher and I am a primary learner. The teacher has to be a student first and has to be a student always. I am perpetuating the learning process. That means if I want to continue teaching, I need to continue growing. Such a person applies the principle of teaching and asks a question always. The question that such a person asks is, how can I improve? As long as I live, I learn. As long as I learn, I live. A student once saw his professor learn early in the morning, his light was on, and he was reading a book. And then late in the night, he saw that same professor reading a book. So he went to this professor and he asked him, "Sir, why do you read so much?" And this professor, he gave a very interesting reply. He said, so the student asked him, "Why do you read so much? What keeps you studying?" The professor said, "I would rather have my students drink from a running stream than a stagnant pool." I'll repeat that. He said, "I would rather have my students drink from a running stream than a stagnant pool." What does it mean? Are you a running stream or are you a stagnant pool? Every teacher has to ask himself or herself. A lot of us become stagnant pools. That means our knowledge and our learning becomes stagnant beyond a certain point in time. We don't improve. Every time we deliver a lecture, most teachers prepare the first time. And I know teachers who never prepare again. Every time you're teaching to a new batch, are you a better version of yourself? Or are you just mechanically teaching what you've already done before? Are you learning every time you teach a batch? And are you learning where you made mistakes? Or are you just stagnant, like a pool? Now, if you look at the boxes here, right in front of you on the screen, there are two boxes. One has a box which has arrows going inwards. The second is a box which has arrows going outwards. That's what you are. Either you can be the first box or you can be the second box. If the arrows of your life, your frontiers, your questions, your interests, your mental energies move inwards, you're in the process of dying. If your arrows, your frontiers, your questions, your interests, your mental energies are going outwards, you're in the process of developing. This has nothing to do with age. How old is too old? I'll tell you a story. Socrates was 4 days before his death. He knew he was going to die in 4 days because they were going to poison him and kill him. 4 days before his death, He was learning a new language. So somebody asked him, "Arey, you're going to die. What will you do with that language?" He said, "I love to learn." The question is, what is your conditioning? Unfortunately, most people are conditioned against learning. The most exciting and fulfilled people are those who are older and have decided not to stop learning. The question I want to ask all of you all as teachers is, are you in the process of learning or are you in the process of dying? How to grow in the intellectual dimension of life? I have 3 thoughts that I want to share with you all that you should do. Every teacher should do these 3 things to really become a better version of themselves on an ongoing basis. The first thought is maintain a consistent study and reading program. Understand that leaders are readers and readers are leaders. Reading, contemplation, application. All the 3 go hand in hand. The scriptures speak about these 3 words: Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam. Shravanam means hearing or reading. Mananam means contemplation. Don't just read, contemplate on what you have read. And third is Nididhyasana, means apply what you have read and contemplate it. Don't just read books, but also read people. When you're around significant people, it's a good thought to keep your mouth shut. You, when you keep your mouth shut, you can observe a lot. You can learn a lot from people. A lot of what I do in my books, or a lot of what I do in my talks, a lot of what I do in connecting with people is simply observe. I spend a lot of time in my life just observing people, and in observing people, I learn the most. As teachers, you are really fortunate that you get access to hundreds and thousands of people all the time. When you're not teaching, learn to observe people. You will learn a lot by observing. And if you want to learn more about them, ask penetrating questions, especially when you come across significant people in life. The second thing I suggest all teachers should do is enroll in continuing education courses that improve not only your content but also your skills. Never stop improving your skills of delivery. Never stop improving your skills of teaching, and never stop improving your capability as a teacher. And the third thing I suggest every teacher is get to know your students individually. Find out how much you can. Yes, it's tough, but it's not impossible, especially if you have interest in the student. The student is not just there to study with you. The student is there to grow with you. Remember, as teachers, we are growth agents, and the students depend heavily on us for their growth, not just from a career point of view, but from a self-development point of view. Unfortunately, many teachers I know engage in something that is really dangerous. That's called comparison. A lot of teachers engage in unhealthy comparisons. Unfortunately, many times teachers compete with their students. Imagine, if a teacher is competing with his own student, what is the scope of the teacher? So one is student-teacher relationship is to complete one another, not compete with one another. Nobody in this world is isolated. Everybody is a part of a system. When we are a part of a system, we actually complete one another. The teacher helps to know a student, helps a student to grow, and a student helps the teacher to grow. You know how the student helps you to grow? The biggest way a student helps you to grow is by not paying attention to you. When a student is not paying attention to you, the student is giving you a feedback. You're not good enough. You might get angry on the student, but that's fine. But please listen to the feedback. If you don't listen to the feedback, you actually are not going to grow. A lot of teachers get hurt, feel bad when the students don't listen to them, or the students not paying attention. I am yet to come across a student who doesn't pay attention to a teacher who is good. I teach all over the world, and I have met thousands and thousands of students, and I can tell you for sure, if the teacher has prepared well, no student can resist paying attention, even the naughtiest ones, right? Therefore, the question is, if the student is giving you feedback, are you ready to listen to the feedback? A lot of teachers, because they bring their egos in, they don't listen to the feedbacks, and they don't grow as teachers. And therefore, each and every individual student is different. When we start comparing one student to another, we're actually making the biggest violence. I'm going to give you an example of a plant, of two plants, in fact. There's a plant known as a garden fern. The garden fern is a plant that grows very quickly. You plant the seed of a garden fern, in a matter of 3 months, it grows into a full-fledged plant. There's another plant which is known as a Chinese bamboo. The interesting thing about a Chinese bamboo is, Chinese bamboo, if you plant the seed of a Chinese bamboo, for the first 1 month, nothing grows out of the ground. The second month, nothing grows out of the ground. The third month, nothing grows. Fourth month, nothing grows. Fifth month, nothing grows. 1 year, absolutely nothing grows. 2 years, nothing grows. 3 years, nothing grows. Imagine you're watering the plant. 3 years, nothing grows out of the ground. And then, in the matter of 3 weeks, after 3 years, it grows to 100 feet in height. Now, if you compare the Chinese bamboo with the garden fern, what do you think is better? The Chinese bamboo better or a garden fern better? The answer is, you can't compare the two. The Chinese bamboo has some strengths, but it also has some weaknesses. The garden fern has some strengths, but it also has some weaknesses. When we end up comparing two students, the greatest violence is we're actually comparing a garden fern with a Chinese bamboo. Both of them are different. The Chinese bamboo takes its own time to grow, but when it grows to 100 feet straight away. The garden fern grows very quickly, but it grows so short. Each student has his or her own unique strengths and weaknesses. As teachers, it is important that we learn to see the uniqueness in a child. Many times, parents get their small babies to me, and they're showing me their babies, and they are one of the first questions parents ask is, whom does the baby look like, mother or father? I tell them, neither. The baby looks like himself or herself. It's unique. Look at our mindset. Right from day one, we start comparing. The moment we look at every individual student as a unique personality, we actually start respecting them uniquely. And that's when we can bring the best out of them. That's when we can learn to appreciate them. One time, there was a teacher who joined a new school. And this teacher, when she joined this new school, she was informed in the first meeting, that happened with her, the introduction meeting, that the school is going to go through a change from next year onwards. And the school is going to adopt a new process by which the best students are going to be put in a particular division. And the second best students are going to put another division, like that, There'll be a gradation of the students according to the ranking, according to their marks. So the teacher was happy, and especially when she came to know that she got the division that had the most brilliant students, she was excited. First assignment and the first classroom, the most brilliant students. She went in a little earlier, and she observed the students enter. Every student that entered the classroom, she saw they had charisma, they were confident, they were enthusiastic, they were excited to learn, and she was thrilled. She decided to put her best effort, and she really put her heart for a whole semester, and really put her whole heart. And then when the results came that particular year, all the students in her class did exceedingly well. And then after some time, she was talking to her friend in the staff room, and she was saying the school did a really good job by bringing all the best students together. It's so much easier to teach when students are excited and enthusiastic to learn. Her colleague was shocked. She said, what are you talking about? That system never got implemented this year. That's when she got the shock of her life to realize that her class was filled with all kinds of students. There were good students, there were average students, there were not so good students. It was a mixed class. But she just in her mind, she assumed it was the class of the best students. And she put her full energy thinking that she's teaching the best of the best students. And the results spoke for themselves. A lot of times, we make mental blocks in our mind. We put mental blocks in our mind about how the student is and what is the capacity of the student. Actually, the reality is when the teacher focuses her or his or her 100% on what the student has to offer, what she has to offer or he has to offer, it actually affects the student a lot. It actually affects the mindset, the capacity, and capability of students. The student's interest a lot depends on the teacher's interest also in the subject. A teacher has the capacity to create interest in the subject for a student. And if you have a teacher who is really putting his or her heart into it, then there is growth in all directions. Unfortunately, to create achievers is not easy. I'm going to share with you a story from the Ramayana, a very beautiful story. This is a story of section of the Ramayana where the monkey army reached the southern tip of India, and they saw that there's a 800-mile ocean to cross. Find Mother Sita, and the question was who's going to do it. Each of the monkeys started speaking about their own capacity. Somebody said I can do 100, 10 miles. Somebody said I can do 220 miles. Somebody said I can do 100 miles. Somebody said I can do 200 miles. Somebody said I can do 500 miles. And then finally, one of them said I can do 800 miles. But I can't come back. I can go one way, but I can't come back. So everyone was dejected and sad about the whole thing. And then the leader among them, his name was Jambavan. He saw that one of them had not spoken. Jambavan, and that was Hanuman. Jambavan went and sat next to Hanuman and started inspiring Hanuman. As Jambavan started inspiring Hanuman, Hanuman really got inspired. He really realized what his potential is, and it became huge. And from then onwards, if you study the Ramayana, the hero of the Ramayana is Hanuman. Every single page in the Ramayana from then onwards, Hanuman does some amazing things. But the question is, how many times is Jambavan's name in the Ramayana after that? Hardly 3 or 4 times. I call Jambavan as an invisible leader. For the world, Hanuman is the hero. But for Hanuman, Jambavan is the hero. Because Jambavan is the one who created Hanuman. Teachers are like Jambavan. Teachers create achievers. They may not be achievers themselves, but they create amazing achievers. Imagine if Jambavan was an insecure teacher. Usually, insecure people don't create achievers. They create other insecure people. Only when you are secure, only when you have a desire to create leaders, create achievers, and you want to be invisible in the background. Jambavan was not always visible, not always going in the front. He was pushing Hanuman in the front. That's the role of a teacher. The role of a teacher is to push his or her students in the front, make them achievers. And in the process of making achievers, what do you get in return? The one thing that you get in return is satisfaction. The satisfaction of creating achievers. If you are here to become an achiever, sorry, teaching is not the role for you. I'm very frankly telling you all this. If anybody wants to be an achiever, teaching is the wrong profession. Teaching is a profession where we create achievers. We are not interested in being achievers, but we create achievers. And that's what every teacher is. A lot of times in life, one of the things students struggle with is accepting their realities of life. Unfortunately, a lot of students struggle intensely with accepting their realities. There is a mismatch between expectation and realities. There's a big gap between expectation and realities of life. Usually, the smaller the gap between expectation and reality, the less there is stress. The bigger the gap between expectation and reality, the more there is stress. it's important students and teachers learn to start aligning our expectation with the realities of life. I'm going to tell you all a story. One time, there was an elephant that participated in a Olympic competition of all animals in the jungle. All the animals in the jungle were participating in this Olympic competition. This elephant also participated, and it specifically chose to participate in a running race. And in this running race, there were many animals that were running: cheetah, tiger, deer, rabbit. Elephant also participated. Guess who won? Naturally, the cheetah won, the fastest animal in the jungle. The elephant felt very bad. It decided next year I'm going to win no matter what. And the next year, one full year, the elephant went through jogging practices, weight loss programs, and what not the elephant did. And next year it participated again in the running race. And guess who won? The cheetah won. The elephant went into depression permanently. This is the problem when our expectations are not in alignment with the realities of life. Today, the way our media, the television, the internet, all these movies, they make unrealistic expectations in students' minds. And students, even teachers to a great extent, they live based on very high expectations. You look at these ads, you look at these movies. Have you ever seen imperfect people in the movies? You'll always see perfection. Everyone looks perfect. But when you look at yourself in the mirror, what do you see? You only see imperfection, right? But the problem is, we are always accustomed to seeing perfection on screen, and in reality, there's no perfection. And the gap between expectation and reality creates a mess in the mind. Most students are in that mess. The expectation is so high, the reality is here. The gap between expectation and reality is making my life miserable. Stress, depression, frustration, anxiety. So many students committing suicide simply because the expectations are so high and the realities are so low. Someone has to help them align their expectations with the realities of life. Acceptance makes us emotionally tranquil. Non-acceptance of the realities of life makes us emotionally agitated. If something is happening not the way I want it to happen, if I accept it, it becomes tolerance. If I don't accept it, it becomes anger. If there is some uncertainty in life, and with the corona situation, there is so much uncertainty in life, right? Whenever there is uncertainty in life, if you don't accept the uncertainty, it causes fear. But if you accept the uncertainty, it's not called fear, it's called adventure. If you do bungee jumping, there's so much uncertainty. White water rafting, so much uncertainty. But you don't call that fear, you call it adventure. Because you accepted the uncertainty. When someone has something that we don't have, or if someone is able to achieve something that I'm not able to achieve, if I'm not able to accept it, it's called jealousy. But if I'm able to accept it, it's called inspiration. You don't get jealous of Sachin Tendulkar. You get inspired by Sachin Tendulkar. If someone has hurt you and you're not able to accept it, it's called hatred. But if you're able to accept it, it's called forgiveness. When anything is handled with non-acceptance, it becomes a negative emotion. And anything that is handled with acceptance becomes a positive emotion. And this is known as the emotional equation of life. The primary responsibility of teachers and parents is to give children avenues by which they feel success. They will feel and they will get a feeling of success. Not throw them into parts which will make them feel like a failure. Today's education system and most teachers and parents thrust their children into paths that make them feel like a failure. The role of teachers is to push children in paths that give them a taste of success. In some path, they should feel a taste of success. Success or failure is not about potential, it's about interest. A lot of times we feel success, failure is about potential. Actually, not at all about potential, it's about interest. The mind will follow the heart, but the heart seldom follows the mind. Competence cannot become your passion, but passion can always develop competence. Give your child, give your student a chance by choosing a path where the best can come out of them. Not everybody is good at everything, but everybody can be good at something. Self-belief is not built by giving speeches to children. It is built by giving victorious experiences to children. With every taste of victory, the child grows in his own eyes. Teachers and institutions are supposed to create experiences where children experience taste, a taste of success. If you create competitions in which only a particular section of children, win, then only those will keep winning. What about creating competitions where other section of children win? Right? Every child has his or her own unique way of presenting things, of achieving success. And it is therefore the duty of teachers and the duty of institutions to create avenues where every child will feel a taste of success. What helps children grow into becoming powerful individuals is not talent always. It's actually feeling of self-worth. Just a few days back, I was doing a whole workshop on self-acceptance. And I'll tell you, so many people join that workshop simply because, and these are like adults, some of them in their 40s, some of them in their late 30s, some of them in their 50s also. And why people are joining these workshops? Simply because in their younger days, they didn't feel great about themselves. Somehow, they didn't get a chance to accept themselves the way they are. And therefore, it is very important as teachers, we create opportunities where children actually look at themselves with pride, with dignity, and with confidence. And that is one of the primary roles of a teacher. I'm going to share one last thing and I'm going to end today's session. This is a very important aspect that I want to share and I want to talk about before we get into question answers and discussions. Life is like an iceberg. If you've seen icebergs, I'm sure, if you've seen Titanic, you know what an iceberg is. Life is like an iceberg. 25% of the iceberg is seen above water, but 75% of the iceberg is below water, what you can't see. 25% of a student, his or her life, is seen above water. That's what we call personality. But 75% of who a student is, not just student, even teachers, 75% of who an individual is below the water that nobody sees. 25% of an individual is what we call as personality. 75% of an individual is what we call as character. Education is complete when three things happen. Education is complete when somebody has knowledge, skills, and values. Every education system, every education institute gives ample amount of knowledge and skills. But I am yet to find institutes that give values. And therefore, we find individuals who are passing out from institutes who are very knowledgeable, who are very skilled, but they have not developed their character. And when you have not developed a character, your skill and talent will only take you to a certain level. Beyond a certain level, talent is one of the most useless things you can have in life. I tell this in IIMs, I tell this in IITs, wherever I go to big institutes. In fact, I begin my lecture by saying this. Beyond a certain level, talent is one of the most useless things you can have in life. Because talent can take you to open the first door to success. Talent can help you open the second door to success. Talent can probably help you open the third door to success. But talent will never open the final door to success. Because the final door to success is opened not by talent, but by good attitude. And therefore, when I talk to institutes, educational institutes, especially when I talk to teachers, I tell them, please develop the personality of the students, knowledge and skills, and external personality, the way they look, the way they talk, all that, do that. But please don't avoid the inner development of a student, which is character and which is good attitude. It is the responsibility of an institution, It is a responsibility of teachers and parents to help children not just develop the knowledge and skills, but also develop their inner character and inner value systems. And that's what actually makes them successful. It's not about just becoming successful. The question is, how do you retain success? You may become successful by your talent, but to retain success, you need character and good attitude. And that's the responsibility of educational institutes, teachers, and parents. Thank you very much. I would like to stop here and open the forum for question answers. I'm really grateful to all of you for your patient listening and enthusiastic participation. If anybody has any quick questions, please feel free to ask. You can unmute yourself and ask questions, or you want to type it on the chat boxes. Also you're most welcome. I would also like to know some feedback from all of you all who attended this session. You've been hearing me for the last 45 minutes. Did I make sense to you all? Did what I speak resonate with your thoughts? Please do share that also. Yes, Mr. Kudaleji, please go ahead and ask if you can unmute yourself. Yes, sir, please.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. It was definitely a very good session. We like your session. My not exactly question, but the clarification about the responsibility of non-teaching community, like for example, parents or society, the myths and the archetypes which are being circulated about teacher in media or movies, do they damage the image of the teacher? And of course teachers are ready to upgrade themselves with the current development in technology, but students, the amount of the respect, I'm not saying that we are very knowledgeable, but the amount of the respect and the sincerity that students should uh, properly show to the teachers, properly the higher classes students, not lower like LKG or other students, but that is being damaged due to these archetypes, like professor used to be forgetful in movies, or professor he doesn't remember many things. So that type of things should also be taken care by non-teaching community to restore the status that we used to have in the past. What is your reflection on this particular, sir? That is my the sincere question. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you for the question, sir. There are two types of circles that I would like to talk about. There is something known as a circle of influence, and there is something known as a circle of concern. Circle of concern is all those things that we're concerned about, but we can't do anything about. And circle of influence is all those things that we can do something about. So usually the circle of concern is also called the blame, morose, worry circle. It's called the BMW circle. We blame somebody, we become morose, and we start worrying. So usually a lot of people are in the circle of concern. That means these are things we are concerned about, but we can't do anything about. As long as you are in the circle of concern, you actually won't take action. Because the circle of concern is also a circle of inaction. So I would highly recommend that teachers come into the circle of influence. Circle of influence essentially means, can I do something about it? There are some things we can't do anything about, but there are some things we can do something about. If you actually study the history of the world is filled with teachers who have not really bothered about what the society thinks about themselves, but they've created students who are such powerful students who, if you study, in India or abroad, everywhere in the world. So my suggestion is, yes, there are many things that we have to be concerned about, but my suggestion is, let us focus on that which is in our hand. What is the way in which students understand and make judgments about the teachers the most, it's not what when you are in the classroom. It's when they observe you otherwise. Remember, students have very powerful observation skills, very powerful observations. And therefore, if you can carry yourself in the most dignified way and also put your efforts in teaching in the best possible way, I'm sure that the dignity that you deserve will be afforded to you. Yes, it may not be in the best possible, in the way that it used to be in the past, but I'll tell you what's the difference between the past and the present students. The difference between the past and the present students is that today students are honest and frank. Before, the students used to think something and say something else. Today, the students are absolutely frank, and that's actually a good thing. Because in the past, students would say something else, but they would actually mean something else. You can't really understand what they are actually feeling. But today, what they feel, they will tell you straight on your face. A lot of teachers are not able to digest this. But if you are a teacher who is really interested in improving yourself, your students are your best feedback mechanism. Your students are your best helpers, and they will help you grow. Until you grow, they won't stop giving you feedback. So I would say that's the way we look at students. At least that's the way I started looking at students. So when I started going to IIMs and I started giving talks in many of these schools, the first time I was a little shocked. What directly on the face they tell, they're bored. So I used to get shocked in the beginning, and I was thinking, I'm trying my best. This guy is saying I'm bored. That's when I realized I can shut him down. His marks are in my hand. I can shut his mouth. But I said, what's the point? If I do that, then how am I going to improve myself? The question you have to ask yourself is, do I want to prove myself or do I want to improve myself? If you want to prove yourself, then you won't put an effort. Then we have so many ways to justify. But if you want to improve yourself, you'll find reasons and ways to improve. That's the way I would look at it, sir. I hope that helps a little bit. Thank you for the question, though. Here's another question on the chat box. Ms. Archana ji is asking, how can a teacher manage peer pressure? Very important. The way I understand is, in any organization, when I go to corporates, some of the biggest corporates in the world, and I'm speaking about team building, one of the things I tell people is, in a team, members of the team are supposed to be assisting one another grow the department or grow the organization. But when you create an environment where members are fighting against each other, are insecure about each other, or finding a lot of pressure from each other, in such an environment there will be no trust and cooperation. Let me give you an example, and this is a very important example that all of us need to know as leaders. Teachers are powerful leaders. So 50,000 years before, I'm just giving you like a hypothetical scenario. 50,000 years before, when men used to live in caves and men used to live in forest environments, there used to be a lot of threat from the environment, weather, animals, so many insects there, and there is danger from all directions. And what is the danger doing to you? The danger is out to destroy you, right? And so human beings, they started living together in small groups, basically. And as human beings started living together in small groups, they realized when we are together, we can deal with all the outside dangers. So that means I can sleep in the night and not be scared that some animal is going to attack me. I can sleep in the night and not be scared that a forest fire is going to burn me. Because I know somebody will protect me, right? And that's how groups started forming. If you see the corporate world today, if you see colleges and institutes and organizations today, there is so much danger. The danger of competition, there's danger of technology that is going to, make you irrelevant. There is danger of syllabus changing. There is so many dangers that are out there to destroy you. There is so many dangers out there to put you out of business. There are so many dangers out there to make you in a null and void, right? The question is, when there are dangers all around us, are we in a circle of safety? The organization is supposed to create a circle of safety. The leadership in the organization is supposed to create a circle of safety. People in that circle of safety, all the members within the organization, they're supposed to feel safe. When people feel safe, there is trust and cooperation. The problem with trust and cooperation is that they are feelings. You cannot tell somebody trust and cooperate and expect that they will actually trust and cooperate. It's a feeling. You need to feel safe to trust and cooperate. But if you are in an organization where you don't feel safe, there's no question of trust and cooperation. That's where peer pressure comes in. When you are in a circle of safety, and in that circle of safety, if you actually feel safe, then you will trust and cooperate. So it is very important teachers create a circle of safety around themselves. Not just teachers, the organization itself creates a circle of safety so that everyone can bring the best out. When you feel safe and when you feel the trust and cooperation, the best out of you comes out. The best performance, the best cooperation, the best contribution. But when you feel unsafe, the worst out of you comes out. That's what peer pressure is. I hope that answers your question, Archanaji. The next question, I'm just taking questions on the chat. If there's anybody else who wants to ask, you can please ask. Just unmute yourself and ask. Till then, I'm going to take questions from the chat. Parvati Agarwal ji is asking, as a teacher, we need to be very patient, but we are still human beings. Please suggest how to control anger and stay focused. In Sanskrit, anger is called Kama Anuja. The word Kama Anuja, Anuja means brother, younger brother. Kama means desire. Anger is a younger brother of desire. Whenever you get angry, you have to ask yourself one question. What need of mine is not met? Every time you get angry, it's because one need of yours is not met. Usually, sometimes it's a need for respect. Sometimes it is a need for time. Sometimes it is some other need, Every time you get angry, just ask yourself this one question. What need of mine is not met? Usually, you'll be surprised. You're getting angry at somebody, but you are actually angry about something else only. Because we don't ask ourselves this question, what need of mine is not met? Like, what is road rage? There are so many people that get angry on the streets, and road rage is so very rampant nowadays, So what is road rage? Simply because that guy who's getting angry on the road, he's not angry at the person who is shouting at him or something like that. He has some other need which is not met. Maybe his boss is going to shout at him in the office. Maybe his wife has already shouted at him at home. Something is there in his mind which is, some need is not met. And that results in anger in another scenario, basically. So whenever you get angry, just ask yourself this one question. What need of mine is not met? I hope that answers your question. There are so many questions coming up. I'm just going to take up, whatever I feel is most relevant to all of you. JVG Ajay is asking, we say survival of the fittest in changing circumstances of students, new demands in terms of knowledge, skills, and competencies. What are expected things? What are the expected things required in the current day context? In my understanding, as I said, if you remember, we spoke about knowledge upgradation on a constant level. We spoke about going into the box or going out of the box. A lot of teachers become stagnant pools. They just go into the box. That means they feel that once I have covered the syllabus and once I have my content ready, I'm sorted for life. No. If If you want to be relevant, you have to upgrade every year. And if possible, within that year also, many times. See, uh, the problem with teaching is that there's not much money in it. That's the reality of teaching. But are you looking for money? If you're looking for money, you're in the wrong place. But if you're looking for satisfaction, you're in the right place. So what you'll get here in ample is satisfaction. The satisfaction of creating achievers, the satisfaction of teaching, the satisfaction of touching people's lives, the satisfaction of molding the future generation. If you're looking for money, sorry, you're not going to get here. Teaching profession doesn't have much. I mean, I can vouch for that. I have been teaching quite a lot, and I have seen hundreds and thousands of teachers in my life. There is no money here, but there is a lot of satisfaction here. Probably one of those professions which is the most satisfying profession in the world is being a teacher. And therefore, if you really want to experience satisfaction, that satisfaction is experienced in the eyes of students. The satisfaction is experienced in the gratitude of students. And when students are grateful and they tell you that they're grateful, that's when you feel satisfied. And that will come only when you put in efforts, when you put in energy, when you don't expect satisfaction for free. Satisfaction comes at a big price. So a teacher, when he or she pours himself completely into a student, and then one word of gratitude comes out from their mouth, it's not easy for people to feel grateful, because gratitude is a very big thing. Okay, so I'm going ahead. My question, Manjula Ji is asking how a teacher will get good impression in the minds of students. As I said, that's what my answer was. You put in your heart, and that's when you will be able to touch students. Vijay Lakshmi Ji's question is, I strongly believe education should build character, and I truly practice this. But the present generation mistakes the concept of practicing values in real life is more of a spiritual kind. How do we tackle this? Saint Francis of Assisi, he told his preachers something very interesting. And that's what I would like to share with you all today. He said, preach all day, and if needed, speak. What does it mean? He's saying, preach all day, if needed, open your mouth. What he's saying is that by your behavior, you can preach. Now, obviously, when we're talking about values and character, and it cannot be taught by just only words. We teach character through actions. And when you have an opportunity to teach by your words, by your actions, and by your behavior, that's what students learn. And that's what students carry in their lives. Teachers have so many opportunities to show lack of character, lack of morals. Hundreds of opportunities, not one or two. The question is, when such opportunities come, how do you behave? That's what you're teaching your students. When you compromise, what are you teaching students? If you have compromised, how can you give a lecture on character and values? And therefore, students learn by observation, as I told you, Alena. And that's what, so you may not be able to convince a student by giving a lecture on values. You live by it. There is one thing that even today people respect, and that is honesty. People respect honest people. Why is Abdul Kalam such a famous and such a well sought after leader much after he's gone? Why do people respect him so much? Why do people respect Lal Bahadur Shastri so much? One of the most powerful, honest politicians. When Lal Bahadur Shastri was, at some point in his life, he used to get a pension of something like 50 rupees. Not pension, like some kind of a grant of 50 rupees to run his house. And, one friend of his came to ask for a loan of 100 rupees or something to Lal Bahadur Shastri. He said, sorry, I have only a salary of 50 rupees. I can't give you a loan of 100 rupees. He went to his wife. Wife gave him loan 100 rupees. So Lal Bahadur Shastri was shocked. He asked her, how did he get this 100 rupees? And we only earn 50 rupees. The wife said, every month Our expense is 40 rupees. I saved 10 rupees and I gave that to him. Lal Bahadur Shastri wrote to the government and he said, my monthly expense is only 40. Please reduce my salary from 50 to 40. That's character. Even today, 50 years later, people are talking about that. That's what character is. It's by an example. Okay, I'm going to take one last question, and if there is anything else, we can discuss later. Mitesh ji is asking, my question is that in today's modern world, the attitude of the students have had a paradigm shift in such situations. How can we make them understand the importance of education for their future? Everywhere in this world, you will find good students and bad students. You will always find students who lack attitude and students who have very good attitude. Teachers are those who don't give up on either. Even if a student lacks attitude, we don't give up on them. We try our best. Yes, they may not reciprocate and they may not appreciate our efforts, but we don't give up on them. See, a patient who is sick, a doctor doesn't give up on, right? In fact, the doctor gives more attention to a sick patient than to a patient who is like almost normal, you know. So if you find students who are bad, who are having bad attitudes and are not reciprocating well, it's important to give more attention to them. Obviously, there is a limit to which how much you can give attention. But the point is that we don't give up on them. If you give up, who's going to pay attention to them? If as teachers we give up, and if parents give up, then who's going to mold the future of society? People who become criminals and people become socially dysfunctional are those people who have been given up by parents, who have been given up by teachers, and therefore it's our moral duty and it's our real important role to not give up on such students also. I hope that answers your question, sir. The questions are still coming, a lot more. I think I'll stop here. If anybody else would like to share, there are one or two thoughts before we end, we can take up. I am so grateful to all of you all who have written on the chat messages about how the session has affected you all and inspired you all. It's so inspiring to see all these comments and chats coming in. Very, very grateful to all of you all.
Thank you so much, Sri Shubhavilas Das, for such an inspirational and informative session. It's really overwhelming to see so many people having taken so much from this. I hope everyone like me will feel more responsible as teachers and would like to act as catalyst of change. And this is so much inspiring for all of us to hear from you. And we are taking a lot from this session today. Thank you. And one small note for the participants, that before, the participants are hereby informed that the feedback link is sent in the chat box, both on Zoom and YouTube, and it would be active for an hour only. And the certificates will be issued in a day or two from today. Yeah. So I would ask Rashmi ma'am to propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, Archana. Experience, expertise, excellence, and honesty creates its own mark. That is the zest of the today's session conducted by Sri Shubhavilas ji. That's what I can sum up. Sir, it was a wonderful session. Actually, people who are here in this profession by choice will agree 100%, not even 99.9, 100% on this. And fortunately, we are here by choice. So we thoroughly enjoyed the session. And I think with all the participants together must have the mutual feeling. And they must also have been left spellbound. I had to speak so much, but I had nothing to speak. So amazingly, I'm feeling today after the session. To sum up with few of the points which I would like, if someone has missed the session, Sir has talked about, is that teachers are assessed by the success of the students. So let us not be the achievers, but let us create the achievers. What a wonderful thing to carry with us today. One more thing which I really liked is that students like to learn from the running stream rather than to be a stagnant pool, and we have to upgrade and ourselves as much as possible if we want to give the best out of what we have, and if we want them to become the best what they are. Three things which Sir highlighted about is that read, contemplate, and apply. Wonderful thing. And we can't just be the preachers. If we don't follow, we can't make our students to follow. A wonderful example of garden fern and Chinese bamboo, my favorite, sir. What a wonderful thing. Most unexpected thing for a teacher like me. But it was really excellent example. Teachers can create amazing achievers, which we should always believe in, and every student has, their own capacities to learn and to succeed. So we have to identify those capacities and work on them. The expectation and reality gap which sir talked about, sir, it was really too much required to be understood, sir, because every person come up with different incapabilities also, and we are responsible to fill that gap, and you have really assured that once again that we can do it. Thank you so much for that. One more thing which I felt very noticeable is 25% is the personality and 75% is the character. Sir, we generally overlook that 75% because it is not visible. And actually it plays the key role in the success of the student's life. And you have shown us a mirror on this also and enlightened us on this also. We are very thoroughly grateful to you, sir, because teaching the teachers is the most difficult task, and a personality like you can only do the justice to this particular topic. Thank you so much, sir. My notable remarks, which I have been supposed to, and I have to do it, being the convener of the program. I would like to thank you, sir, first, Shri Shubhalas Das ji. My gratitude and word of gratitude will not fulfill what I'm feeling, but still, I also want to extend my thanks to all the participants who added value to the seminar with their presence. And the type of questions you have put on, I need not have to speak anything about that. My thanks to Principal Dr. B. Mohan Kumar and Director General SGGBES, Professor Abhirama Krishna, for extending their support. My special thanks to Mr. Vinod Babu, and Ms. Deepa J for helping us with a seamless viewing experience of this webinar. I also want to thank our technical team, which consists of Mr. Naveen Kumar, Mr. Nasiruddin, Mr. Hayat Basha, Mr. Murthy, Mr. Ashok, and Mr. Bharat. We could hear you, we could see you, and we could interact with you because of the help and support given by these all people. I'm thankful to them all. Last but not least, to all the faculty members of my college, all the vice principals and others who encouraged us and helped us in conducting this seminar. Thank you so much. Have a good, a great weekend, and Jai Hind.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sir, yes, you can ask.
Principal sir, we would just want if our principal sir would want to add something and just close the session. Is he left? I think he's not there. Unmute me, unmute. Yes. So thank you everyone. It was Thank you, everyone. It was really great having everyone, and we hope that we can conduct such sessions more for our growth, our development. And thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend and stay safe.